He stood in front of his 8th grade class, holding a sheet of paper in trembling hands. His voice was steady, confident even. He talked about the importance of books, how reading could change a life. Teachers smiled. Parents clapped. A small-town boy with big potential. But 5 years later, police say that same boy stood over a bleeding man in a backyard and pulled the trigger. A shotgun blast at close range. The victim lived, but something else died that night. The version of Doug Orr everyone thought they knew. By the time authorities caught up with him, Doug wasn't just a suspect. He was a name that echoed across prison yards. According to federal prison records, there were whispers that San Quentin had to weld his cell shut. That even other inmates didn't want to get too close. So how did it happen? How do you go from class speaker to cold-blooded enforcer for the most feared biker club in America? His full name was Douglas Flynn Orr, Jr., born April 22, 1946 in Fresno, California. The first child in a working-class family, he moved with his parents to nearby Selma not long after birth, a small town where things rarely changed and people mostly stayed in their lane. Locals remembered him as a good kid, respectful, quiet. Teachers said he was unusually articulate for his age. The local newspaper even ran a front-page piece on his first birthday. Just a photo from a family gathering, but back then, that was enough to get noticed in Selma. And Douglas? He made being ordinary look easy. He excelled in the pool, won ribbons, stood on podiums. Not with arrogance, but with that same focused calm you saw when he read out loud in class. He wasn't loud. He wasn't restless. He was just solid, structured. A small-town boy who said all the right things, stayed out of trouble, and never raised his voice. So what went wrong? Was it just a mask, or did something change him? On November 11, 1959, something happened. The kind of moment that doesn't show up in high school yearbooks. Doug was 12. He built a homemade four-wheeler using scrap parts and a little too much ambition. That day he took it for a ride, but at the intersection of Wolf and Co. Avenues, he couldn't stop. A car slammed into him. The front right wheel rolled directly over his legs, shattering them both. Medical records from Fresno County Hospital show doctors saved the limbs. But what about the mind? He spent months in recovery, mostly confined to a hospital bed. Away from school. Away from his friends. Away from normal. And here's where the story stops smiling. Because no one really knows what changed in that room. What he thought about, what he learned, or what he left behind. Can physical trauma flip a mental switch? Can pain rearrange a personality? By the time he returned home, he wasn't broken, but he wasn't exactly the same. There's no medical record for what happened next, no psychiatric notes, no official diagnosis, just the next piece of the puzzle. At 15, he vanished. No warning, no fight with his parents, no goodbye to classmates. Just gone. The family never issued a statement. No police reports. And when he reappeared days later, he offered no explanation, as if it didn't need one. Where did he go? What did he do? And why did no one press for answers? After that, he returned to his swimming, his academics, his awards. From the outside, it looked like resilience. But inside, that's where the speculation begins. Because when people break, they don't always break loud. Sometimes they just stop caring. The year was 1964. Doug Orr was 18, just out of school, still winning swim meets, still carrying the calm demeanor that made teachers admire him. But something under the surface had shifted. There's no diary, no confession, no single turning point. But by the time he was 21, Doug had vanished from the world of ribbons and speeches, and reappeared inside something very different. The Hells Angels. He didn't just join. He embedded himself in the Daly City chapter, one of the most volatile cliques under Sonny Barger's expanding empire. By 1967, his transformation was no longer just internal. World-renowned photographer Irving Penn captured him in black and white, wearing full club patches, staring into the lens with dead eyes. The same boy who once gave speeches about reading, now immortalized as an outlaw. And he wasn't faking it. July 27, 1967, Los Altos, California. According to police reports, Doug gets pulled over for a routine traffic stop. Tailpipe, rearview mirror, nothing serious. But when officers search him, they find 2 plastic bags of marijuana in his pocket. It's a misdemeanor, a slap on the wrist, but it's the first official stain on his record. And for Doug, it's only the beginning. 5 months later, December 1967. Court documents show Doug and another angel show up at an anti-war protest on the campus of San Jose State. They don't argue. They don't chant. They come armed, Doug with a baseball bat. His companion carries a steel pipe. Students scatter. No one dies, but the message is clear. This is no longer the boy next door. What changed in just a few years? Who was he trying to impress? The club or himself? 1968. A bar fight breaks out in the parking lot of Redwood City's only topless pool hall. Doug's involved. A deputy sheriff tries to step in. Police incident reports detail how Doug doesn't back down. He strikes the officer from behind. That's when the canine is released. A trained police dog lunges, clamps down, rips into Doug's hand. It takes multiple officers to restrain him. But what's more telling is what Doug didn't do. He didn't run. He never ran. Miss the button? Go ahead. Subscribe now so you don't forget later. And then came January 29th, 1969. This is the day Doug stopped being reckless and became deadly. Earl Hudson, 21, was just driving home. At an intersection, a car full of Hell's Angels pulled up beside him. Someone flashed a middle finger. Hudson returned the gesture. The kind of petty exchange that usually ends at a red light. But this one didn't. The Angels followed him. All the way to his house. They pounded on the door. Hudson's wife hid in a closet, terrified. Then the door came down. Hudson ran out the back. Tried to jump the fence. But he didn't make it. According to police reports and Hudson's testimony, Doug shot him in the back with a shotgun. Point blank. Hudson survived. Barely. Medical records from Alexian Brothers Hospital show doctors removed his gallbladder, parts of his stomach, large intestine, and liver. 47 shotgun pellets were pulled from his body. Hudson would later tell investigators that the recovery was excruciating. Months of surgeries, permanent digestive issues, and psychological trauma that lasted years. And yet, somehow, he lived. But here's the twist. Instead of staying silent, Hudson named his shooter. He told investigators, Doug Orr. So the big question is, why didn't Doug finish the job? Was it hesitation, a mistake, or did something in him hold back at the very last second? And if so, why? The moment Earl Hudson named Doug Orr as the man who shot him, the investigation shifted into overdrive. Late January 1969, police raided 4 homes tied to the Hells Angels, looking for their new prime suspect. Doors kicked in, properties torn apart. But Doug was nowhere to be found. Then, just days later, the break came. Early February, Menlo Park. Doug was spotted. Not hiding, not running, just existing. Calm, flat, as if the attempted murder charge hadn't even registered. When officers moved in, he didn't resist. In his possession, a .38 caliber handgun, and something even more telling, a one-way ticket to Vancouver. So what was he planning? A permanent escape across the border, or just a brief disappearance to buy time? Either way, that ticket said something loud. Doug didn't think he'd be walking free much longer. February 14, 1969. Court transcripts show Doug enters a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. It was a bold move, strategic, unexpected. Was this a man losing his grip on reality, or just someone smart enough to pretend he already had? The court wasn't about to take his word for it. April 14, 1969. Doug was ordered to undergo full psychiatric evaluation, and this is where the story fractures. What follows is bizarre. Dr. 1, Dr. John Peshaw of Agnew State Hospital, concludes Doug is insane. According to his psychiatric report, Doug claims he hears voices, sees a ghost version of his dead father. It follows me about all the time. It's my father. It tells me everything I do. It told me to cut myself, Doug told the psychiatrist, as documented in court files. Dr. 2, Dr. Min Shore, a San Jose psychiatrist, finds no signs of mental illness in his evaluation. Doug appears completely coherent. Dr. 3 had a different theory entirely. Doug was faking it. So with 3 doctors, 3 opinions, and no consensus, the court faced a decision. Was Doug Orr mentally unfit to stand trial? Or was this all part of the act? Because here's the real question. If a man can make you question reality, how sure are we he ever lost his? Quick reminder, if you're still watching, you're already ahead of most people who think they've heard every biker story before. But this one? It's about to get stranger. April 21st, 1969. Doug Orr's trial date is set. Attempted murder, felony assault, multiple charges pending. But before a jury could hear a single word, the court had to answer a more immediate question. Was Doug mentally competent to stand trial? Until that was determined, he wouldn't be heading to a courtroom. He'd be heading to Agnew State Hospital. It was supposed to be temporary. But what happened next rewrote the story entirely. Mid-1969. Doug didn't wait for the psychiatric board's decision. Hospital records show that one night, under the cover of silence, he and 7 other patients sawed through the bars of their window, slid down a drain pipe, and vanished into the dark. It wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't a delusion. It was a coordinated escape. 5 were recaptured within days. Doug wasn't one of them. According to club legend, and yes, even Sonny Barger himself later claimed this, the escape wasn't spontaneous. The Hells Angels allegedly broke him out. Their reason? They believed the hospital was planning to electroshock him. Some even whispered the word lobotomy. Whether that was true or not didn't matter, because in outlaw circles, perception is truth. And the perception now? Doug wasn't just dangerous, he was untouchable. He remained on the run for nearly 3 months, and during that time, something strange happened. Something that doesn't fit the narrative of a hardened fugitive. Police reports indicate Doug allegedly broke into the Humane Society. Why? According to investigators, he went to retrieve his white German Shepherd, the man who stared down judges, deputies, and federal agents, risked everything for his dog. So who was he really? October 10th, 1969. Doug was finally arrested, not in a shootout, not on the run, but while returning a borrowed car. He was calm, as usual. In the glove box, a .38 revolver. In his pocket, nothing. In his mind, that's anyone's guess. The court didn't play games this time. After extensive evaluation, Doug Orr was declared legally sane at the time of the shooting. The trial resumed. The jury didn't take long. He was convicted. The sentence? Up to 19 years. He was just 23 years old when he stepped into San Quentin. But whatever innocence was left, it didn't walk in with him. San Quentin didn't soften Doug Orr. It recognized him. According to former inmates and prison guards interviewed years later, within weeks, other inmates had already given him a new title: toughest white boy on the yard. In a place filled with lifers, killers, and shot callers, that wasn't a nickname, it was a challenge, and Doug met it head-on. Prison records and inmate accounts suggest he formed working alliances with the Aryan Brotherhood and Mexican Mafia, not as a soldier, but as a broker. He had weight, he had leverage, and he had something else, a reputation for walking into violence and walking out the other side. The most famous example, a coordinated ambush by the Black Guerrilla family. Multiple attackers, close range. One managed to tear out a baseball-sized chunk from Doug's calf muscle. According to the prison medical report, Doug didn't retaliate, he didn't scream, he let the story spread, and that story did more damage than a blade ever could. Eventually, Doug was released, but prison hadn't loosened his grip, it had sharpened it. At the Sturgis rally, witnesses said he walked down Main Street like a ghost from another world. The street parted like the Red Sea, one biker later recalled. No shouting, no pushing, just silence, respect, fear. He moved into a house directly across from Sonny Barger and transferred into the Oakland chapter. He wasn't climbing ranks anymore. He was planting himself next to the throne. But freedom doesn't suit everyone. May 1985, the FBI launched Operation Rough Rider, a nationwide crackdown on Hells Angels narcotics trafficking. Federal records show Doug was caught with a firearm in his truck, a felony for somewhere with his record. He was sent to Lewisburg Penitentiary in Pennsylvania. That was the last time anyone saw him free. Inside Lewisburg, according to prison officials and fellow inmates, Doug developed a heroin habit, something strictly forbidden by the Hells Angels Code. But who was going to stop him? He didn't answer to club rules anymore. He answered to nothing. June 26, 1986. Doug Orr was found dead in his cell. The coroner's report listed heroin overdose. No witnesses, no foul play suspected. The man who'd once stared down prison gangs died alone. When the news of his death broke, according to club insiders, it sparked a war inside the organization. One faction said Doug had violated the rules, that heroin users didn't deserve a Hells Angels funeral. The other faction said they didn't care. They said Doug earned it. And maybe, just maybe, they were afraid he wasn't really dead. Some joked that denying Doug his funeral might be the last mistake you'd ever make. You're still here? Do what you meant to do earlier. Subscribe, because this story isn't done twisting. August 7, 1986. Doug was laid to rest at Evergreen Cemetery in Oakland, not with the public, but in the section reserved for fallen angels. He was 40 years old. And yet, to this day, there are still whispers, rumors that federal agents faked his death, that somewhere in a welded cell, Doug is still alive, still watching. Because if Doug Orr taught anyone anything, it's that the most dangerous men are the ones who stop being predictable long before they stop breathing. Doug was a dream to many, and a nightmare to others. The boy who once read books to his class became the man who silenced his enemies through fear. Whether victim of trauma or product of his choices, his story remains one of the most disturbing transformations in outlaw history.